All right, folks, welcome on back here for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk Workshop this Monday, July 14th. Great to have all of us back inside our live trading room. Margaret, Russ, Mike, Roberto, Leda, Phil, Jim. Great to have Jim, one of our trial members here, testing our room out. Great to see you, Jim, as well as Farzad. And actually got a couple of Jims. Jim S., one of our longtime Diamond students here. Great to see him, Bill, and all of us, though, otherwise, back inside our live trading room, as I had mentioned. But otherwise, if you're back on social, if you're on YouTube, Facebook Live, X, LinkedIn, etc., right down below at Cyber Trading U. Ooh, I got a little tan today. How about that? I was outside, like getting a nice roast yesterday. About time here. I got a little color in me. All right. Well, with that said, let's hop right to the thick of things, of course, because it ain't about my ugly mug. It's about the trades from today and at least what we were focused on coming off of last week. So there's a bunch of different smaller cap trades that we'll have the chance to dig into. But let's just talk about the obvious. It's not even an elephant in the room. It's just so simple to say that the markets have been pushing up gradually more from the last week and a half, 2 weeks. Broke new all-time highs back on, I think that was Thursday. A little chop fest on Friday. And we started this morning off down a little bit from the close on Friday. But listen, don't be fooled. This is still an extremely bullish market. So aside from the stocks that are on the gainers list here, which we'll get to, of course, with the market so strong, I'm certain that a lot of us still were focused on trades like NVIDIA heading into the morning today. This made a pretty good slingshot. Hey, it did drop off at first, but with how strong the market is altogether, unless if the markets are just completely tanking, or who knows if there were to be news with NVIDIA or the semiconductor sector, this bounce is expected. It's not only not surprising, but is what the stock should be doing. So let's actually just go over like NVIDIA to begin. I'm just kind of going over random stock XYZ when it comes to the larger caps. I mean, we could have just as easily covered Tesla. Obviously, AMD's been moving as good, if not better, than NVIDIA lately. And of course, with myself, how pro Bitcoin I am. Of course, we'll talk a little Bitcoin here too by the end of it. Well, let's dig into NVIDIA. Why not? Because actually, I don't even have the level 4 open for this page yet. I don't have my levels for this stock yet. I don't know where my support resistance is. So let's go into the beginning of this move from pre-market. Because, hey, if trading was so easy that we were to just tell you what happens all the time in hindsight perfectly, there wouldn't be a need for you and I to be here, not just inside our live, trading room as a community, but, if you're on social, if trading was so easy, I like to point this out, there wouldn't be a need for you and me to be doing this on a Monday. You know what I mean? So that's just where heading into the day today, well, hey, NVIDIA was moving back up pretty nicely beginning from 8 o'clock in the morning. It was bouncing back up there. So that looks healthy to me. Just for this one stock, let me ask Leda, Margaret, Russ. Let's get Wiz in here. Uday, Wendy, Scott. Who else? You got Matt W., Lynn H., great to see. Latha, great to see all of our members just inside our room. Where do you see support? Where is support for you on this trade? When you look at the book map, when you look at my screen here, my page, where do we have big support? Tim, where do we have big support right now? I want you to answer that as well. Let's have our focus here on this screen, right? Right at 164, you got about 34,000 shares sitting there. It's on the bid. It's your largest order by far and by large. Now, if I scroll this down a bit here, the answer does change, right? The first, answer that you should have given was at 164. That is your first big support level. It is. But if that were to break, and if this were to keep dropping after the break of this iceberg, my assumption is that our next big level is not until 162 then, right? For about 62,000 shares. So let's see what happens. I mean, hey, within the first 5 minutes, we're sitting on our hands. We're not jumping into jack within the first 5 minutes. So, there are times where I'll just tell you, oh, this happened here. This would have been a great bounce, but it happened in the first 5 minutes, right? So right here, within the first 3 to 5 minutes, it's still kind of holding support, or I guess you could say it's trying to. It broke below it. It's dropping off about 40, 35 cents. It's coming back up. Okay, well, you know what? Hey, if this stock looks to break back above, if it pierces back over 164, pretty much right where my cursor is, to be very exact with you, this would be an entry. This constitutes, based off of strategy of going with upward momentum, this is an entry. Now, let's just think of it this way, though. if there's so much buying off of this level, if there's such a big support here, and hey, after the market opened up, actually there's about 118,000 shares sitting here now. So there looks to be a lot more volume on the bid. Well, hey, listen, simply put, if there's so much buying pressure off of this price, and if the stock is going to pierce back over this level, and if we buy this stock right here, right at this point, at this time, simply put, Sam, Albert, or rather just, how about some of our more seasoned students there, Phil, Margaret, Farzad, etc. When a stock breaks through a big level and you're jumping in, you take the trade. Just simply put, two words. What are we looking for shortly after, folks? Two words. Sam used those two words in his sentence. A big move, absolutely. Phil abbreviates it there, BM. I'll tell you what, Phil, that could be dangerous. BM could also stand for bookmap. BM. I know what you mean, though, right? I'm looking for a big move shortly after. So if you jump in here, then at the complete minimum, then this needs to stay as support. If this gets tested as support and then it bounces, great. That's how a level should play. That's how a level should work. But if this comes back down and fails to hold over this, you better be hitting that eject button. That's why they make seatbelts in cars, right? So, instantly it did come back down and it didn't break lower yet. So there's like a chance. There's maybe a chance this could bounce coming up. But listen, if it's not making that big move shortly after, guess what? It's going to make a big move shortly after. So yes, this ended up making its move just the other direction. This did not hold over 164 as a support, as it could potentially do so here. Now, hey, I just want to point this out because in hindsight, well, it dropped later on, right? We don't have this foresight perfectly when the move is happening. Folks, there is going to be a right place, wrong time type of scenario where you take an A+ entry, you put your seatbelt on tight, and you get taken out. Either break even here if you set your stop right at the iceberg price, or maybe if it breaks lower at that point, you just take the small loss and you move on. Now, hey, how about this? Let me ask Sam and Phil and Gillis and Michael and Margaret, all of our members here now again. Like we do every week here, we always ask this question because it's part of our step-by-step process. What time is reversal time? What time do we often expect reversals within the stock market? 10:30, right? So this is breaking lower. It's like 9:40 in the morning. We got a lot of time until reversal time. I'm not trying to buy around these prices. And shoot, if this drops down to the 162, which transparently looking at this here, yeah, it looks like there was a lot of volume here at first, but then it looks like a lot of the volume disappeared for a moment. Look at like the color here. It goes dark red to more of a yellowish for a moment. But then as it drops closer to the price again, that's where you see more volume being, shown on the bid. So long story short, right? Hey, in a perfect world, you just jump in right off the bottom here, right? We don't do that, right? Because we would want to see this stock break under, then back over, under and over. This actually doesn't pierce this price and break under at first. So even if you were looking for the entry and thirsty to take this trade off this level, this just is too good. This doesn't do everything we need it to do here. It's actually so pretty and perfect. It just kind of hovers a couple pennies above this iceberg and then just magically goes back on up. Most of the time, that's not how it works, folks. Most of the time, you actually do get the break below the level, then the nip back up. But either way, regardless, even if that were to happen, if you're telling me that reversal time's at 10:15, 10:30, then I'm not expecting reversal time at 9:45, right? Right? So that's just where I'm saying, like, this starts to make a decent move to begin, and it's likely doing it without me. If I was like focused on NVIDIA today, if this was my trade, I'm just being transparent with you. I'm probably not jumping into this trade here. And if it were to break below and back over, it at least gives me more probability to try the trade. But I can't sit here and tell you definitively with 100% certainty that I would have jumped in here if it made that under and over because of the time, 9:45 in the morning, right? So it's one of the rules I'm the biggest stickler towards. If you're expecting reversals within the market, you probably should be waiting. You probably should be going a little bit closer to 10 o'clock, maybe 10:15 in the morning. So Over time, this ends up building pretty good support, really off of 163. And it takes a few minutes to get that to work and for it to happen. This is still even a little early in advance of that 10:15, 10:30. All right. Well, even if you were to miss that, let's say if you don't jump in here and it goes up more without you, point being, is there room to jump in? What if you do wait till 10:15, 10:30? Like, oh, I thought this was going to reverse later when it normally does. It bounced much sooner here. There's still room for this to try and move up. There is. But the question is, where do we have our levels? Where were the levels? Where do we have the levels? Well, like we all said before, at least above the 162 price, above this, well, there's 164, right? 164. And then even as you go towards like, the morning session here, as this is trading up and down, this is where you could see from the CVP column, there's at least a decent buildup of volume right off that 164. So it was an iceberg level in pre-market. And even with it, with the first, 45 minutes or so of data from the regular hours, this looks to be a pretty decent, volume buildup from the CVP. So that's where over time, the closer that this gets to 10:30 and this keeps trying to break above 164, the more times it can keep nipping and testing that level, especially in a smaller compression of time, you are more prone to see that breakout. So I'll just be transparent here as I always try to be and just tell you if I was looking to take an entry on this trade, this is a little bit even after 10:30, right? So it breaks above this. And by the time it breaks back under it, obviously it's not holding this so nice as support. Well, it drops from this and drops off about what, like 70 cents, goes down from 164 down to 163 and 30 cents here. So think of this movement here basically as saying support's breaking, right? This is trying to be support. Clearly it didn't hold though at this point and it broke below support, right? And it tanked. What are we expecting this level to flip into then? What are we expecting that same 164 price to flip into after it breaks below it as an alleged support? Breaks below it here as an alleged support and tanks. Then I'd like to think the first time it gets retested again, guess what? It should act as resistance like the first time. So if you're asking me, oh, Josh, do you buy it right here? No, no, support should become resistance there initially, but then notice what I said. The more times that it is nipping and testing that level, that resistance this here, the 164, that's going to lead to your breakout. So the more times it's doing it within this 5-minute window, nice entry on the breakout, clean breakout, and then just as equal if if it drops back and if it wants to pull back even, it did here. But both are equal entries as far as just the level goes. The timing of the day, obviously, you didn't get the big bounce off that 162. It didn't make the under over. This was too early for reversal time. I'm just pointing out to you that if you are still following the strategy that we're teaching you in our classes, there seems to be plenty of room to try and jump in here, right? Seems to be plenty of room to take this from the 64 up to 65 and change and still holding here now. Maybe even later this goes up higher, right? So that's where I just want to point out, like, hey, this would have been a great entry. It looks really clean, but it didn't do what we needed it to do based on strategy. And hey, there's still plenty of money to take off the table here, whether you're day trading the calls or even if you're not doing NVDA, you might have NVDL, cheaper ETF. I thought there was another ETF maybe, or was it NVDX? Yeah, this one, NVDX. This is a $15 ticker. So if you're trying to trade this and you're using regular NVIDIA equity, right around this point is where NVIDIA at least broke back over the 164, held it as support here and moved up. Well, hey, the NVDX is making the same exact move here, just a lot cheaper. So I just wanted to start off at least by going over a more larger cap stock, something that we oftentimes call out in our room. Just we didn't really put as much focus on it here for the opening bell. Still a decent trade though, around 10:50 in the morning. Now, though, obviously, we do want to get to a couple of other trades. We do focus on the larger cap stocks, of course. So, of course, we're very focused on Bitcoin as a whole and a lot of the equities that are following Bitcoin. Of Coinbase, Robinhood, MicroStrategy. But otherwise, though, today we nailed it on a lot of different trades that made these incredible moves. Smaller cap stocks that just made kind of a pop off of some early news that came out. They're like flavor of the day type of equities. So trades like SQFT, Sun, Dare, OP. Wasn't there one here also? Maybe it's not up as much. MP, that's been on a tear from last week. But there were a lot of stocks that made these continuated pushes this morning. I want to start off by going over the one that I thought had great potential in pre-market, and this will set the tone for what to expect out of these small cap flavor of the day type trades. I don't want to go into a tangent here as I look to do this because I want to tie a couple things together, but I don't want to go off course. All right, so notice first, at least a lot of these stocks, and including this one, including this BDRX trade that's on the chart, these are all very low float equities, very low float, meaning that the number of shares that are actually available to trade, minus the insiders and institutions, are very small. So that makes the stocks very boom or bust on a day. And once that news has kind of, come and gone, once the volume dries up, it's not so much boom or bust. It's just bust, 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 bust. They're just losing trades going forward. So they are flavor of the day. That's the first thing I just want to point out. But though, I just see every now and then I'll see like a couple, members be like, Josh, great call out. I made 12 cents on this trade. Hey, kudos. They're the one pulling the trigger. So I appreciate their kind words, but they're the ones pulling the trigger, mind you. I bring that up because if I make a call out in the room, that doesn't mean to just jump in. And if it goes up, that doesn't mean that was a good call out. I'm trying to be timely with the call outs. But if I just say, hey, BDRX pop, that doesn't mean it's like, oh, it's going to run instantly. So I called the stock out instantly here because it was popping. And of course, there was some news that came out. And if this wanted to pop more, then it easily could have. This was up 30%, like 35%. How about this? Let me ask Uday, Michael, Sam, Margaret. Uday, I got your question right there as well. We'll get to that action in a bit. But let me ask, if a stock pops in pre-market like this did, up 30%, 35%, is that a lot or is that not so much for what we trade? Is a 30% pop, is that a lot or is that not so much for a trade that we call out? A lot of us are saying a lot, but to be transparent, though, I wouldn't say so. BMNR made 1,000% move in one day, blows 30% out the freaking water. Dare today is still up 83%, but it was up a hell of a lot more in pre-market here, right? So, hey, we call out these stocks that make 100% moves every single day of the week. I don't want to necessarily slap the guarantee on that, so I'll just say the vast majority of the days throughout the week, we're finding stocks up 100+%. So 30%? I don't think this is up too much, guys. This is not up a tremendous amount. Maybe it could go up to a 300% move, 500% move. Very possible. So when I called this out, hey, it wasn't up so much. Pretty cheap. If this wanted to continue to run up higher, that would make it a great call out. And if it played nice in accordance to levels, that is what makes it a good opportunity for you to pull the trigger on. So let's get into this move because obviously, this did not work out. This was eventually a big bust. But how can we manage that type of trade to anticipate when it's not going to work out? How do we get out beforehand, right? Quite frankly, not every stock even affords about 7 or 8 minutes here for you to realize that this isn't popping. Sometimes it's just up, down within like 2 candles. See you later. That's it. But this gave us time. This absolutely gave us time. Now, we could even go into Bookmap, which I will do. Like I'll show the Bookmap here in a moment if you want me to. But let's actually just look at the daily chart here because this is some no-name company, flavor of the day type of trade. I guess maybe back from late May, probably a couple of days where we did trade this stock. A couple of big gaps in the pre-market. Funny enough, both of these candles, it popped, then it came back down, and both days finished bloody red. Then looking long-term, this definitely has not been a good swing trade, right? So that's where I say it's flavor of the day. But where do we have a level? Where are our levels? Again, bookmap will be our go-to as far as volume. But if there was an area from the daily chart that was holding pretty nicely over time, I believe I gave the area. I think I said $1.12 to $1.15 as far as the BDRX trade goes. And I was trying to be pretty quick with where I was plotting my own levels on this graph. But as you could see, it's like right here. It's pretty much just like 112. I would even just say like 112, loosely speaking, give or take a penny. Held it here, subtle bounce, tested it here, bounced. Even once it was piercing it a couple times, it got back above it right here, pretty nice. But over time, the more that this keeps, testing support, nipping and testing support, it's going to break it. And much like we all answered a moment ago, when a stock smashes through big support and tanks, support, at least initially, at first, should be resistance initially. Now, if it were to break above that resistance and make a strong pop, then that resistance hopefully could flip back into a support. And that was the key to this trade. That was the key to the BDRX trade, because after it first popped, all right, well, maybe it keeps going up, but we got to see support build out here. We got to see higher lows, get the higher high. So it started to shake around it by like a little bit, but it started from there to hold better. A little shake, but higher low. Little shake, but higher low again. It's like trying. It's making a conscientious effort to at least hold support. But the longer this is holding support and not making that big move, the more that this is not making big move in your direction, it's more prone to make a big move, like we said, in your not direction. So, again, with as much as this was shaking around even to start here, it's, in a way, this needs to pop. Otherwise, it's not worth being a part of. It's not worth staying in. So the only issue is that just in pre-market trading, this is where it's dangerous to trade pre-market. You can't set stops. You don't have your stop limit orders out there. You don't have your automatic seatbelt. You got to make like a makeshift one. So that's where it's oftentimes better to just get out sooner than later. If this is not making that big, grand, virtuoso pop that you're expecting, and you're trying to use the 30-second rule, and 30 seconds is turning into 360 seconds here, well, something's broken. Something's up. And it's best to get out early than later, because with a lot of these trades that are flavor of the day, well, yeah, flavor of the day is true, but this was more like flavor of like the 10 minutes. So flavor of the day doesn't always mean, oh, it's going to pop back up later on in the morning. It's going to run up higher. This could just be it. You know what I mean? So news did come out. It did pop pretty nicely to begin. We did have a level. But if it's not playing nice, then just move on. You got to learn to get out. Even here, at least, as we show bookmap, let's see the levels here in pre-market. This looks like a hot mess. Let's see. Oh, well, here we go. This does make it pretty simple in relation to just identifying our levels. Outside of the daily chart, well, we did have a level right at 110, $1.10, about 21,000 shares sitting out there. Well, hey, that aligns pretty well. It's like as close as we can get it, like pretty damn close. 110 plus 112, that daily chart level. So the combination of those together, that creates a potential support that this can try and hold above. Keyword is try. It obviously not only needs to hold support, but then break higher. And that's what happens here, where it started off good. It tried to break resistance next at 130. And the more it's failing to run from there, that's where it's game over. So pretty much here you could see if it's not like blasting up higher, trying to go to the next resistance, then not only that, but flipping this previous resistance into support. If it's not even making that effort, then something's broken. So that's where you got to say, all right, the more time that goes on here and it's not cooperating, well, it's definitely not going to cooperate over time. It's going to completely puke and come back down. So unfortunately, that's not just the case with this one trade BDRX. That's been the case with this whole freaking morning here with these small cap stocks. DARE, D-A-R-E. Now, this was starting to bounce in pre-market here. It looks like it held pretty good support from the chart. Really good support. Excellent support, actually. So bounce, but then like at 9:11 in the morning, 9:12, all right, if it just kind of stops in its tracks here and maybe just consolidates, great. That's awesome. but it didn't do that. And it started to come back down pretty steadily here prior to the opening bell. So I'm not calling this a downtrend because this is still making higher lows, right? So with higher lows, there is a thought to say, like, all right, well, what if it breaks higher? What if it breaks out of this resistance area here, right? Well, by the time the market opened up, you wait the first 5 minutes. It's kind of in no man's land here. It's kind of stuck in between, chart levels at least. But point being is that if it's not breaking resistance, making a higher high, then it's more prone to retest support again. And this was already testing support a few times just within the sequence. So simply put, the more it keeps getting poked at, peppered, and stabbed, it's going to break it as support. Support becomes resistance. And that's the name of the game. That's pretty much all she wrote. Game over. From Wayne here, just saying in the chat, CTU average volume indicator, very useful to watch the buying frenzy of buying at the ask, turning red, selling at the bid indicates the rush is over. It is. It is. I would go a step further, though, and just say you should get Bookmap even more because that's going to give you a better ability to dissect the volume. This is a good accessory, and I have it here for a reason. So, I make use of this. But I do want to point out, though, you definitely need to follow the icebergs first. Like, look at level 3, but much more important even than that, level 4. And then, hey, obviously, these chart levels can just, make it easy for us to identify support resistance. So, simply put, once you happen to see this break lower, Wayne, and you see like a lot of, volume candles here, more red, the break below supports your signal to begin with, but just afterwards, it's holding under it. It's trending down from that stage. Sellers are winning the battle there, and then that's all she wrote. All right, let's see here. Give me a quick moment here. I appreciate you joining us right now. I think Mark joining us on YouTube today. I think he's talking about a trade PPL, maybe like a buyout or something there. Well, we're going to go over trades from this morning here, Mark, that we've had the chance to trade and focus on from earlier. Definitely invite you to join us inside our live trading room. Of course, we focus on the small caps like this. Quite frankly, buyouts, though, they are normally not good trades. Normally, buyouts just do not move. Kind of a weird one this morning. MGRM was actually technically a buyout. They got purchased by another company. And a little weird move in pre-market, a little weird move in the morning. Buyouts don't move like this. Once it's a definitive agreement, this is kind of what you're dealing with here as far as the day trade goes. So, I mean this in obviously a good way. You want to make good use of your time, and time is our most valuable asset. For buyouts, they oftentimes look like this, and once they do, you just move away from them. Kind of garbage after that point. But hey, once the stock breaks lower and you can't short it like this is also garbage pretty quick, right? So once you see this break support after the first 5 minutes, at the least, you should say, well, this probably won't be reversing until 10:15, 10:30 at the least. And obviously, the by the time it gets to 10:30, there's a shot, I guess, for this to come back up. But if it's not making that big move, and at the least if it's going to break lower, just move on, right? That's all. But that was kind of across the board, though, today, unfortunately. Even this one. This one is a lot easier to kind of dissect. It really is. Why? Because the trend, at least on the dare trade, although it was pulling back the minutes before the opening bell, that was still making higher lows. So that gave it a chance to say, all right, well, maybe the buyers could step back in. This is not making higher lows here, at least since 6 in the morning going into the opening bell, 3.5 hours. Lower highs, and it snapped a little bit lower here. This is like a little bit after 8 o'clock even, trending down smoothly. I don't think anyone here can give me an argument that the buyers are winning this battle today. Yeah, it's up a lot percentage-wise, but unless if you had the chance to get out here at the crack of dawn, buyers are not winning this battle before the opening bell. Maybe they can win the battle over time. Hey, what happens if this looks to get back above this little chart area here? Or rather, if there's just great volume at a price level and the stock gets back above that big volume. Well, of course, game back on, right? But at least here I'll show first. Obviously, you know what happened, but market opened up. We wait the first 5 minutes, friends. We wait the first few minutes. So this did get halted at first, within the first 5 minutes, actually. So it looks like it reopened at 9:37 in the morning. Then from there it came crashing down. So hey, if you want to see this try and build over support, it has to go under, then right back over. Like a little nip under and over, then like pop. Let's get the pop afterwards. Then we're on to something. To tell you the full story here, not only did this just cut below this level, it didn't go back up and above. So there's literally no room to press buy. It just breaks below the level and keeps on dropping. So again, you're not pressing buy. You're kind of here waiting, but once it breaks below it and stays below it, there's no thought of jumping in. But to add more fuel to this fire here, as far as why it's like a horrible idea to just press buy, you gotta wait for that under and over. This stock, I think, got halted on the way down. This actually got halted on the way down right here. And pretty much once the stock gets halted down, we wipe our hands clean from it immediately. It's just game over. I would go as far as saying 95% of the time for a stock that gets halted down, it's not coming back up. So this got halted down and it broke below the level anyway. So the combination of those two, I'd be here waiting to try it, but there's no strategical room for me to like press buy. If you think that there's room for you to press buy, then you're probably not focused on the strategy. And I mean that because, like I said with NVIDIA, I was transparent with NVIDIA, like, oh, 162 didn't make that under and over. So, I can't unfortunately press buy there. Well, here, yeah, it breaks under it, but it doesn't break back over it right away and it gets halted. So that's where immediately you just say, oh, shit, that sucks. All right, well, I don't think this is going to hold support too well now at this point, right? And then adding in the fact that this was trending down here the hours before the open. The sellers are winning this battle. And if you're hoping for the buyers to win over time, it's always good to have hope. I mean, if we have zero hope whatsoever, then we're not gonna try and take a trade, right? If we have no hope, then we likely have zero confidence, right? And with that, there's no room to even jump in or want to jump in. You gotta have hope. I don't want to say don't have hope, but I want to say don't only have hope. You know what I mean? Like this was trending down, down, down. So the sellers are winning this battle, whether you like it or not. Whether you want to admit it to yourself or not, sellers are winning this year battle. If the buyers want to win the battle, this has to be like picture perfect and play as nice as can be and prove itself to us that way. Pretty similar. It's like NVIDIA off the 164. It took a little while, a little elbow grease, but it got the job done. Going back to that Sun trade, listen, if it's not even going to try, then the sellers are resuming this battle. They're winning the battle again, I should say. So that's how you got to learn to at least move on from a trade or know when to or when not to rather enter a stock. Dare, Sun, probably this square foot trade, SQFT, some no-name company we haven't heard of until this morning. The stock is on like a microscopic float. I don't even think this is factual. What is this? 90,000 shares worth the float? I don't even know if that's real. That can't be legit, right? That it has to be even a little bit larger than that. Let's find out. Square foot. Holy shit! This is the float. Yeah, it's 970,000. So TradeStation was a little off, but still, to have an under 1 million share float, this is as boom or bust as it will ever get here for us folks. So that's just where, hey, even for this, heading into the opening bell today, this was not looking good. Sellers are, winning this battle since 7:15 in the morning. If the buyers want to prove themselves to us, then they can, and we would need to see the stock play exceptionally nice from there. Let me actually just break open Bookmap here, and we'll just get into this trade. Uday, I also have your question just from before on the video, so we're going to get back to that before we finish. Did I not? Oh, I already got it up here, right? Square foot. This one. Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, let's see what we got here on the heat map. Even before the opening bell, before the open, because this was trading for hours upon hours prior to the opening bell hitting. So, hmm. Okay, how about this? I'm going to start off this question by asking our students in the room here this first because you're more likely to get this pretty quick. What two price levels? I'm looking for two answers here, not just one and no more than two. So, specifically, just two prices here. What two prices show the shit's not going to. Okay, I got it. I got it here. What two prices show orange lines on this heat map that are acting as resistance? What are the two darkest orange lines on this page? The two darkest orange that are acting as resistance. Acting as resistance. What do we got? Albert saying 15 and saying 7. Well, $7 down here is an orange line. It is. But this is a bid order here, Albert. So this is support. And I appreciate you answering because I know that you're brand new to us. So the more that you participate, it's only going to, click that much easier for you. So, I appreciate you participating. Absolutely. A lot of us saying 15, including Albert. So 15. Well, yeah, I mean, this shows it is a lot darker orange in shade. It is above where the stock is trading. So this here, I will count as a resistance. $15. Now, what else do we have here? What is the other price? What's the other number? I mean, hey, I'm not trying to make this a softball question, but I'm not necessarily trying to make this a crazy curveball. Wayne saying 17 big on COB. This is about 1,500 shares, Wayne. 1,583 shares. That's not, well, it's not larger than the rest, but it's not big even in terms of the size. But keep in mind, remember, what I'm having you answer is what two dark orange lines that are going across the screen act as resistance. So not the 7 level because that is support, mind you, right? Focus on where those orange lines are going across the screen. Now, a lot of us already had answered, but I want everyone to kind of see it for themselves too. So that's where you could just see if I'm only focused on the orange lines, right? You got 13 here. This was resistance. So it's not like it's an acting resistance like here, like 15 is, but this was resistance. It got hit perfectly here. And then it blasted over it here, right? It blasted above resistance and ran up huge. So you know where I'm going with this, folks. When this breaks above this orange line right here, the resistance that was at 13, who's winning that exact battle? Who's winning this battle here when it blasts above resistance at the $13 price? Buyers are, right? And what color is showing up on time and sales when the buyers are winning the battle? On time and sales, at least. See the green dots on Bookmap if I were to enable them, enact them here. But green. Green is buying pressure, stock going up, 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 up. That's where I'm expecting, at least in this sequence right here, for the buyers to win the battle. Now, if the buyers really want to win the battle for the rest of the morning, then this 13 level needs to flip into a support. It just needs to. Otherwise, there's more likelihood for it to drop. So that's what happened at first. It did drop at first. Initially, it did. This is even at 8 o'clock in the morning. So well before the opening bell, this was not playing so nice off that 13 level. I'll even remove the heat map just so it's easier on the eyes for us to focus on 13 and then 15. And keep in mind, I'm only having you focus at first on those iceberg levels. That's it, at least for right now. And specifically 13 we'll use for here because going into the market open right at 9:30, market opens, ding, ding, ding. Wait the first 5 minutes. It was already popping at 9:38 in the morning. I think there's even a couple of separate trading halts here. This got halted 2 times going up. So at least those are the good halts. But still, though, this was testing 13 as resistance. So that's just where the more that it keeps nipping and testing resistance, the buyers are winning that battle again, aren't they? And then if it breaks above this resistance, Then let me ask Sam, Gillis, Leda, Brian, Uday, Michael, Margaret, all of our students and members right now joining us. Actually, right now, about 97 of us joining us live this afternoon. So great to have all of us here. If this does break back above this as a resistance, and it's nipping and testing resistance, then what do we need to see this resistance flip into again, folks? Brian, quick to the punch at least, but yeah, support. Absolutely. So that's where I'm a little patient with seeing this try and test resistance. And perhaps you can get stopped out or be there, right place, wrong time. But simply put, the more that it is trying, it does promote, I was going to say entice, but it does promote not only to jump in, but maybe even try it a second time if you get taken out here. The point being is that right place, wrong time, right place, right time later on. So this ended up making a hell of a squeeze from 13, basically from here, and ran up as high as 22, nearly 23 bucks. So practically a 9-10 point move. We're not expecting this to go up 9 or 10 points, mind you, but it just goes to show that when a stock is going to play nice, when it is going to flip resistance into support and stay above it, then it promotes the thought of this running up higher, promotes the thought of this making, proverbial big move shortly after. So do I need to get out at 21, 22 bucks, 23 bucks for me to realize, I made a big move? Hell no. Because if I jump in around 13 and get out at 16 and change, shoot, how often do we make 3+ points a share on a $15 stock? If the answer is rarely, if ever at all, then I can only imagine that you'd be elated to take $3 per share off the table for a $15 equity, right? If this pops up a little higher without us, the more we beat ourselves up over a little spilt milk, we're actually wasting a lot more time. And there could be other trades that could be making an even easier move than this has been. So there's a lot of psychology that's involved when it comes to taking these trades, because there's a level of acceptance that we need to have that, A, we're not going to be able to take the trade out at the very top. The greatest traders in the world don't automatically strive to do that. If that happens, then great. It's like, Christmas twice in one year. But at least here, as long as the stock is playing nice by our entry level or levels, 13 and 15 here, both, 13 first, then 15. If it's going to play nice by our entry levels, it gives us the thought, hey, at least I can make something here. At least I can take some money off the table and realize a pretty decent, move, a big move shortly after. Now, though, obviously, every roller coaster has a top, and the whole theme for today's trades have been, what happens when the music stops? What happens when we're on the top of the roller coaster looking down and eventually this topped off? You can see it just broke support here. It's a wrap. This is done. This is game over. That would be my expectation, at least. If this stock wants to have any thought of moving up later on today, which I am not expecting, I will go as far as to say this, folks, for the next hour and a half, do not expect me to be calling the stock out, because I am not expecting this stock to make some Hail Mary pop. But the more that this keeps nipping and testing this as support, it's only going to go much, much lower. So if you're looking for some Hail Mary play for this to go back up, it needs to stay over 13. But the trend is so far down here off the highs, it's just counterintuitive to try and long a stock that is just trending down. If the sellers are winning this battle on this no-name stock that you and I didn't know of before today, why would we want to have extreme confidence that it's going to bounce? Is it confidence, my friends? Or is it just blind hope? Right? Because again, it's good to have hope, but if it's blind hope, if you're just praying and just wishing it's going to bounce back up, I'm in from 17, please. This is trending down pretty steadily. You can't fight it, right? If I'm doing 1,000 shares of this stock, which is a lot of size for how thin the order book is, I'll just say, my 1,000 shares for a stock trading 41.5 million shares total on the day, I'm not going to make a dent in this price action. So, unless if you're seeing something that I'm not, this is just kind of a hope and a prayer at this point, my friends. Most of these stocks that are low float flavor of the day, they end up just completely tanking back down. Remember our friend BMNR, right? There's a reason why we stopped calling this out after a while. And it was even before this giant red day. But the more that it's making lower highs and it already made, 1,000+% move, if not more, eventually it's going to come back down. So, that's where even today for this one, this is like a Bitcoin stock. So, Bitcoin breaking new all-time highs over the weekend. We're near 125,000. This made a great day trade move today. Don't get me wrong. If someone had jumped in, took a good entry as a day trade, it pops up. All right, well, cyber clock, we expect reversals around 10:15, 10:30. Cool. This topped off right around 10:15, 10:18 in the morning. Like, this played out well in accordance to the cyber clock. That's what I'm telling you. Like, this could have been a good day trade, right? But if you look at this chart, one look at this chart, and I can't imagine someone having, with logic, extreme confidence that this is going to definitely keep moving back up day over day, or otherwise just within the course of this one day. This is a fairly low float ticker. I think they added more to the float over time. But same rules apply. Listen, if this isn't going to keep with higher lows, listen, if this isn't going to flip resistance perhaps into a support, if it's going to break below that area as a projected support, then it's game over. It's a wrap. So, once this broke below here, I would just look to move on. Simple as that. All right, let's go through some chat here before we finish. Got a lot of chat I need to attend to from our trading room. And actually, just to begin, I want to make sure I get to it. So actually, there was a question from Uday regarding NVIDIA. That's from earlier, right? I just didn't want it to get lost in the shuffle. So Uday was asking on NVIDIA from before, wouldn't the opening print affect in some way for NVIDIA here? Absolutely it does. It really does. And let's go into it right now. Why not, right? An excellent question. My analysis on NVIDIA from earlier, I showed bookmap and the icebergs, the orange lines. So, I have you follow a narrow path when I teach, because the more that you're jumping away from that path, you're probably looking elsewhere that you shouldn't be. So I wanted everyone to focus initially on those iceberg levels at first. So now let's factoring in that opening print there, Uday, because hey, it's easy to say this, Uday, but after the first 5 minutes, this tanked. So I'll just tell you, the opening print didn't have as much relevance to it, at least once it immediately tanks, right? Just dropping, dropping, dropping. All right, well, if this wants to move back up, and if this wants to make a move back towards its open price from today, which is the open price for this, weekly candle as well, this is pretty much right at 165 and 40 cents. It's 1.5 million shares that got filled exactly at this price when the market opened up. So we automatically, count this as a level. Support resistance is just dependent on the stock price action here after the open. Meaning this, what if this bounced from 164 here, moved back up? Well, this would be tested as resistance a lot sooner today than otherwise. But it took a while for this to bounce, took a while for this to build up. So now at this stage, Uday, yeah, this 165.39 is absolutely a key level for us to utilize, at least as it tries to come back up higher. Even if it pushes up to it here, I would at least initially expect resistance. That's my first thought. But the more it were to keep testing resistance, like kind of nipping and testing, a little false breaky right there, kind of coming down, here we go, bam, something like that, right? Where the more it keeps nipping and testing resistance over time, small concentration of time here, the more it does it, that's where you should feel more prone to take that breakout trade. So that's how I would look to use the opening print there. All right, let's keep it a rolling here. So let's see, anything else that we had the chance to go through? From Nabila says this may have been on one of the other trades from before. The first candle that breaks resistance, you jump in, or do you wait for confirmation again? Okay, so that applies to any of these trades, actually. Excellent question. So, I'll answer basically how I just phrased it before I read your comment there, Nabil. So the more times it's nipping and testing resistance in a smaller concentration, I'll have a lot more confidence to take that breakout trade. So, hey, NVIDIA, right? 164. So it broke below it as support here, tanked. That's where at first, like when it comes up to resistance here, I'm not so jumpy to take the trade at first. All right, hypothetically, let's just say, let's say you get the itchy trigger finger and you try and jump in. All right, well, if you jump in here, it needs to hold over, it needs to go back up. It obviously doesn't. So this is just where right place, wrong time. And like if you were to jump in here, you get out break even or you take a tiny little nick of a loss. That's it. But though, after this point, it breaks below this as support again, because it broke above it. All right, well, let's see this build out as support. Broke below it as support. That's where, once again, I'm telling you, for as long as it was trading under the price and it took a while for it to come back up to it from here, I'm skeptical about jumping in immediately. But the more I keep seeing the stock nip and test resistance, notice this is just all of maybe like a 6 or 7 minute window of time. This right here, that's not a lot of time at all. That's good. Well, the difference from this is like 7 minutes. Notice when, actually, let's go back even more. When it broke below support here and then tanked, it came back up to it about 45 minutes later. 45 minutes later. That's a lot of time. And then even from here at 10:24 in the morning to here, 10:44 in the morning. That's 20 minutes time. That's still a lot of time in between level tests, in between seeing the same level, getting, tested, hit, pierced, whatever you want to call it. But then notice from this test to this one, it's a lot smaller of a time difference. So that's what I ideally look for, Uday or Nabil. I apologize, when it comes to jumping in, taking the break out. Now we're human beings. We are not robots. We're not the IBM supercomputer, and we're sure as hell not quantum just yet. So that's where I'll tell you, you may miss it. You may be there, right place, wrong time. Maybe you jump in and you take a small loss at first, or you take break even. No harm, no foul. No loss, but just no win. But otherwise, though, that's where I'll tell you on the flip side, there are times where if I am like patient, maybe more patient than I guess I should be, the stock will make that pop and it might do it at times without me. So I want to point out that the breakout trade, it's better to be safe than sorry. I will wait and to see more level tests in a smaller concentration. Of course, as a human being, there's a level of acceptance that we say, oh, shoot, this popped without me. Oh, damn, I was a little too hesitant on that one. All right, well, let's say that happens. Just hypothetically taking it down this hole here. If that happens, if you're waiting for a breakout and it pops and it actually is moving without you, it's like, ah, shit, I waited too long. Then you need to flip your head the other way. Then you need to flip your head and say, all right, well, I missed the breakout. Now I need to see resistance flip into support. So I just want to point out that, for other traders here, I believe I'd answer this for Nabil, but just so we're on the same page, I'm not avoiding breakouts. I'm absolutely taking breakouts, but I'm waiting to see more level tests in a smaller concentration of time. And the more of that I see, then I'll look to pull the trigger on it, right? Go through maybe just one or two quick little trades here, at least if I can. I mean, even the video, we just kind of went over the whole situation with the opening print, like Uday was bringing up. The more times it's nipping and testing this in a smaller window, even better. Like this is, I just made this sloppy drawing, but this is about an hour's worth of time. Well, at least it's testing the level a lot of times in this window. So, the more it's doing that, especially even in a smaller period, better. But hey, if you miss it, right? We're humans. If we miss it, if we're a bit hesitant, popped without us, that is where we immediately need to say, okay, well, now we got to get that pullback. That's it. All right, folks. I think that just about finishes it up. If there's any other questions for me here, just inside our live trading room, let me know. We just conducted our live classes, the beginning of our courses again, right from the top. So actually just before, for all of our, phase one students, you learned how to private chat message me, right? You know how to private chat me in the trading room, away from all the public and away from everyone here. So if you have more delicate questions that you wanted to send over on the side, if you are in a trade, you're down a lot right now, you need to go over it with me, or if you took a big hit earlier today and you wanted to go over it with me on the side, private chat message me And I'm here all throughout the day. I'll be able to get back to you just in a matter of minutes or minute, singular there. But otherwise, on social media, Mark, Leda, all of us just joining us on the YouTubes, on Facebook Live, LinkedIn, etc. Hey, if you're not subscribed to our social media, just be a friend, tell a friend, hit that button right down below at Cyber Trading U, especially on YouTube. That is our YouTube account specifically. We actually just posted a great video on our YouTube channel just from the end of last week. If you happen to use TradingView, the website TradingView, definitely check our account out because we're going to be making more videos about TradingView, tutorials and guides. I showed how to build a day trading scanner, a gainers list of sorts. So definitely check that out on our socials at Cyber Trading U. But otherwise, Uday, Nabil, Carlos, Wayne, Bob, Margaret, got Russ here, and all of us just otherwise. Stay tuned. Next audio broadcast is coming up later on this afternoon, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, just for the afternoon meeting. I'll be back as well on YouTube for that. And then otherwise, we have our next class, our next paid course, our next class coming up at 3 p.m. Eastern later today. So to be transparent, as a trial member in our room right now, I sincerely hope that you're enjoying your time with us. But even more than that, I hope this is something that you see is doable for yourself. And hey, if you need to, take another few days to see if this is for you or not, that's why we give you a full week. But otherwise, though, for our students, if you are a bronze level C2 student or higher, I can name a bunch of us here: Uday, Carlos, Wayne, Bob, Margaret, Tony, I got here, Kevin, as always, Lee, Phil, Roberto, Roseanne, etc. As you can tell, I'm going down alphabetically. But all of those are students that I'll be teaching coming up later on today, this afternoon. So if you are interested in our curriculum, not even just this trading room, but taking the next steps as a student, just make sure that you talk to your education advisor. They are the middleman, middlewoman, Bill. They are the intermediary between you and Fausto and you and myself. And, they'll be able to answer any questions pertaining to our classes. All right, folks. But we'll be back later on this afternoon coming up at 2:30. Catch you then.